The transport ship landed on Vertus 7 with a heavy thud that shook Jiho's bones. She grabbed her single bag and walked down the ramp into the humid air of the jungle planet. The heat hit her like a wall, but she kept her face calm. She had traveled 3 weeks to get here, and she wouldn't show weakness on her first day. The outpost sprawled before her, a collection of metal buildings surrounded by tall walls. Beyond the walls, the jungle stretched endlessly in every direction. The trees were massive, their trunks wider than any vehicle she had ever seen. Strange calls echoed from the canopy, sounds that made her skin prickle with ancient warnings. "You're the human," a voice called out. Jiho turned to see a 4-armed reptilian creature walking toward her. He was tall, easily 7 feet, with scales that shimmered green and gold in the sunlight. His eyes were cold as he looked her up and down. "I'm Kalthos. I run the Crimson Claw crew. You'll be working for me, Jiho," she said, extending her hand. Kalthos looked at her hand like she was offering him garbage. He didn't take it. "Humans," he said with a laugh. "I told the boss we didn't need one. Too weak, too slow. But here you are." He turned and started walking. "Keep up if you can." Jiho followed him through the outpost. Other aliens stared at her as she passed. A massive creature with gray skin and tusks laughed when he saw her. A group of insect-like beings clicked their mandibles in what sounded like mockery. She kept her eyes forward and said nothing. They reached a large building near the center of the outpost. Inside, the air was cooler. A dozen aliens sat around tables, cleaning weapons and counting stolen goods. They all stopped to look at her when she entered. "This is the human," Kalthos announced. "She'll be carrying our equipment on the next job." More laughter filled the room. A huge creature stood up from a corner. He was easily 9 feet tall with thick muscles and skin like rough stone. "This tiny thing?" he rumbled. "She'll break before we reach the jungle." "That's Dern," Kalthos said. "He's my second. Don't get in his way or he'll step on you without noticing." Jiho set her bag down and looked around the room. She counted 12 aliens, all different species, all bigger than her. They were all watching her with the same expression, amusement mixed with contempt. "We leave at dawn," Kalthos said. "There's an old research station in the deep jungle. Abandoned 5 years ago. Inside are biocrystals worth a fortune. We go in, we grab them, we come back. Simple job." He pointed at Jiho. "You carry the extra equipment. You don't touch the crystals. You don't speak unless spoken to. Understand?" "I understand," Jiho said quietly. "Good. Dern will show you where you'll sleep. Don't touch anything that isn't yours." Dern led her to a small room with a thin mattress on the floor. "Human quarters," he said with a snort. "Try not to die before morning." He walked away, leaving her alone. Jiho sat on the mattress and took a slow breath. This was going to be harder than she thought. She had known the aliens would look down on humans, but experiencing it was different from knowing about it. A knock on her door made her look up. A man stood in the doorway, human like her, maybe in his 40s. He had kind eyes and a worried expression. "I'm Minho," he said. "I work in tech support here. Heard they brought in another human." He stepped inside and closed the door. "Listen, I need to warn you about something." "About the crew?" Jiho asked. "No, about the jungle." Minho's face was serious. "That research station they're sending you to? The scientists didn't abandon it. They ran from something. Something that hunts in that jungle." "What kind of something?" "They call it the Vertus Stalker. It's the apex predator on this planet. 20 feet tall, armored hide, teeth like swords. The scientists tried to study it, but it killed 3 of their team in one night. The rest barely escaped." Jiho felt her stomach tighten. "Does Kalthos know about this?" "Of course he does. Everyone knows. But the biocrystals are worth millions, so he doesn't care." Minho leaned closer. "The stalker doesn't just kill for food. It hunts anything that enters its territory. And that research station is right in the middle of that territory. Why are you telling me this? Because they won't tell you. They'll use you as bait if it comes down to it. They think humans are weak and expendable." Minho put a hand on her shoulder. "Be careful out there. If you hear something big moving in the jungle, don't run. Running triggers the hunting instinct in predators." "I know," Jiho said. "We have predators on Earth too." Minho smiled sadly. "Not like this one. Earth predators are kittens compared to what lives in that jungle." He stood to leave. "Get some sleep, and Jiho, if things go bad out there, trust your instincts, not Kalthos's orders. Your instincts." After he left, Jiho lay on the mattress and stared at the ceiling. She thought about the stalker, about the jungle, about the crew that already hated her. She had come here to prove herself, to show that humans could survive in this criminal underworld. But now she wondered if she would survive at all. Outside her window, the jungle was growing dark. The calls of alien creatures filled the air, mixing together into a symphony of sounds she didn't recognize. Somewhere out there, the stalker was waiting. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep, but her mind kept working. She thought about everything Minho had said. 20 feet tall, armored hide, teeth like swords. A creature that killed without mercy. The crew would expect her to be afraid. They would expect her to slow them down, to be a burden. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was too weak for this world. But as she drifted toward sleep, another thought came to her. A thought from old lessons, from studying Earth's history.
Humans had faced predators before.
Humans had walked out of Africa armed with nothing but sharp rocks and survived. Her ancestors had hunted creatures that could crush them with one step. If they could do it, maybe she could too. Dawn would come soon. The jungle was waiting, and so was the stalker. Jiho opened her eyes and stared into the darkness. She wouldn't sleep tonight. Instead, she would prepare. She would remember everything she knew about predators and prey, about hunting and surviving, about what it meant to be human in a universe that had forgotten why her species should be feared. The aliens thought humans were weak. Tomorrow in that jungle they might learn the truth, or they might all die learning it. The sun was barely rising when Kalthos banged on Jiho's door. "Get up, human. We leave in 10 minutes. Jiho was already awake, already dressed. She picked up the heavy pack they had given her and walked outside. The crew was gathered near the outpost gate, checking weapons and equipment. They all looked ready for war. Dern threw another pack at her feet. "Carry this too. And don't slow us down." The pack was heavy, at least 60 pounds. Combined with the first one, she was carrying over 100 pounds of equipment. The aliens watched her struggle to lift both packs, their faces showing amusement. "Maybe we should get her a wagon," one of them said. The others laughed. Jiho adjusted the straps and stood up straight. Her back hurt already, but she kept her face neutral. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her struggle. The gate opened and they walked into the jungle. The heat was worse under the canopy. Humidity pressed down like a wet blanket, making it hard to breathe. The ground was soft and muddy, sucking at their boots with every step. Strange insects buzzed around them, some as large as her hand. Kalthos led the way, moving fast. The other aliens followed, talking and joking. Jiho walked at the back, saying nothing. The packs dug into her shoulders, but she kept walking. After an hour, one of the aliens looked back at her. "Surprised you're still with us, human. Thought you'd collapse by now." Jiho didn't answer. She focused on her breathing, on keeping her pace steady. She had trained for this, running marathons back on Earth, hiking with heavy packs in the mountains. Her body knew how to endure. 2 hours passed. Then 3. The aliens' jokes became less frequent. Some of them were breathing harder now, struggling with the heat and humidity. Their species had evolved on different worlds with different atmospheres. The jungle was wearing them down, but Jiho kept walking. Her pace never changed. Steady, rhythmic, relentless. Kalthos called for a rest stop. The aliens collapsed against trees, gulping water and complaining about the heat. Jiho set down her packs and drank slowly, conserving her water. She wasn't tired yet. Not really. How is she still standing? One of the aliens muttered. "Beginner's luck," Kalthos said, but he was watching Jiho with new eyes. "She'll crash soon enough." They started moving again. The jungle grew denser, darker. The trees here were ancient, their trunks covered in thick moss. Vines hung down like ropes, forcing them to cut their way through. That's when they heard the first sound. It came from somewhere deep in the jungle. A low, rumbling call that made the ground vibrate. Every alien froze, their hands moving to their weapons. "What was that?" Dern asked, his voice tense. "Probably nothing," Kalthos said, but his scales had gone pale. "Keep moving." The call came again, closer this time. Long and deep, like thunder rolling through the trees. Jiho felt her heart speed up. That was the sound of something big. Something dangerous. They walked faster now, no longer joking. The jungle seemed to close in around them, shadows growing deeper. Strange movements flickered at the edge of their vision. But when they looked, nothing was there. After another hour, they found the first sign. It was a tree, massive and ancient, with deep gouges carved into its bark. The marks were as long as Jiho's arm, running parallel to each other. 4 gouges like claw marks. Dern touched the marks carefully. Something big did this. How big? Another alien asked. Very big. They found more marks as they continued. Trees with bark stripped away, paths through the undergrowth where something heavy had passed. The signs were everywhere, impossible to miss. We're in its territory, Jiho said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. It was the first time she had spoken since entering the jungle. What do you know about it? Kalthos demanded. I know we're being watched, she said. Listen, they all fell silent. That's when they realized what was wrong. The jungle had gone quiet. No more insect sounds, no more bird calls. Nothing but silence. That's bad, one of the aliens whispered. That means a predator is near. Keep moving, Kalthos ordered. We're almost there. The research station appeared an hour before sunset. It was a cluster of buildings, half covered in vines and jungle growth. The windows were dark, the doors hanging open. It looked like the scientists had left in a hurry. Finally, Dern said, let's get the crystals and get out of here. They approached carefully, weapons ready. The station's main door was torn off its hinges, lying in the mud. Inside, the building was dark and smelled of decay. Kalthos activated a light. The beam cut through the darkness, showing overturned furniture and scattered equipment. Papers were everywhere, scattered across the floor like dead leaves. Jiho picked up one of the papers. It was a research log, the handwriting shaky and desperate. Day 47. It came again last night. Killed Varric before we could stop it. We can't see it in the dark, but we can hear it breathing. That terrible breathing like a machine. Tomorrow we evacuate. If there is a tomorrow? Cheerful, Dern said, reading over her shoulder. Good thing we're not staying the night. They searched the building, following the signs to the vault. It was in the basement. A heavy metal door with a complex lock. Kalthos and two others began working on it while the rest stood guard. You, Kalthos said, pointing at Jiho. Watch the entrance. Anything comes, you yell. Jiho walked back upstairs and stood by the broken door. Outside, the sun was setting fast. The jungle was transforming, shadows growing longer and darker. That terrible silence continued, pressing down on everything. She checked her watch. They had maybe an hour of daylight left. That's when she heard it. Breathing, low and steady, coming from somewhere in the jungle. It didn't sound like any animal she knew. It sounded mechanical, rhythmic like a massive engine idling. But she knew it wasn't a machine. She turned her head slowly, trying to locate the sound. It seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, echoing through the trees. Then she saw the eyes. They were high up, maybe 15 feet off the ground, reflecting the last light of the setting sun. Two massive eyes glowing yellow in the dimness. They were watching the station. Watching her. Kalthos, she called down the stairs, keeping her voice steady. We have company. Not now. He shouted back. We're almost through the lock. The eyes blinked. Slowly. Deliberately. Jiho's hands were shaking, but she kept watching. Don't show fear, she told herself. Predators can smell fear. Kalthos, she said again, louder. We need to leave now. 5 more minutes. The eyes moved. They were getting closer, approaching the station with slow, careful steps. Jiho could hear something massive moving through the undergrowth, branches breaking under enormous weight. From below, she heard a triumphant shout. Got it, the vault's open. Good, Jiho said, her eyes still locked on those glowing eyes. Because we're about to have a problem. That's when the stalker roared. The sound was like nothing Jiho had ever heard. It started low, deep in the creature's chest, then rose to a deafening scream that shook the building. Every window that still had glass shattered. Dust fell from the ceiling. The crew came running up the stairs, carrying bags full of biocrystals. They saw Jiho's face and stopped. What's wrong? Dern asked. Jiho pointed outside. The stalker stepped into the clearing. It was even bigger than Minho had described. 20 feet tall, maybe more, with a body built like a tank. Its hide was covered in armored plates, dark as night. 4 legs, each ending in massive claws. Its head was all teeth and eyes, a nightmare made real, and it was looking right at them. Run, Kalthos whispered. Don't run, Jiho said. If we run, we're prey. The stalker took another step forward. Its mouth opened, showing rows of teeth like swords. Run, Kalthos screamed. The crew bolted out the back door into the jungle. Jiho hesitated for just a moment, meeting the stalker's eyes. Then she turned and ran too. Behind them, the creature roared again and gave chase. The jungle became a blur of shadows and terror. Jiho ran with the crew, branches whipping at her face, roots trying to trip her feet. Behind them, The stalker crashed through the trees like a living avalanche. The aliens had dropped their weapons, dropped everything except the bags of crystals. Their night vision equipment bounced uselessly on their belts as they ran in blind panic. Some of them were screaming. Others just ran in silence, too afraid to waste breath on sound. Jiho's training took over. She controlled her breathing, kept her stride steady. Don't panic. Panic kills you faster than any predator. A tree exploded behind them, torn apart by the stalker's claws. The creature was toying with them, she realized. It could catch them whenever it wanted. But it was enjoying the hunt. Split up, Kalthos yelled. It can't chase all of us. No, Jiho shouted back. Stay together. We're stronger together. But the aliens weren't listening. Fear had taken over their minds. 3 of them broke off to the left, crashing through the undergrowth. The stalker's head swiveled to track them. One of the aliens, a reptilian like Kalthos named Korsh, screamed as he ran. Help me, somebody help! His voice cut off suddenly. The terrible sound that followed told them everything they needed to know. The stalker had made its choice. Keep running, Dern bellowed. Don't look back. But Jiho did look back. In the darkness, she could see the stalker's eyes glowing. It had stopped to feed. They had bought themselves time with Korsh's life. The thought made her sick, but she kept running. They ran for what felt like hours. The jungle grew darker, lit only by the moons rising through the canopy. Strange bioluminescent plants cast eerie blue light across their path. Finally, Kalthos called for a stop. They had reached a ravine, a deep cut in the earth with steep walls on either side. A narrow path ran along one edge, barely wide enough for one person. We can't keep running, one of the aliens gasped. She was bent over, her lungs heaving. I can't breathe. We rest here, Kalthos decided. The ravine protects one side. We can defend this position. Jiho looked around, her instinct screaming that something was wrong. The ravine was a natural choke point, yes, but it was also a trap. One way in, one way out. This is a killing ground, she said. We need to keep moving. You don't give orders here, human, Kalthos snapped. We stay. Jiho opened her mouth to argue, but Dern grabbed her arm. Save your breath. He won't listen. The crew collapsed against the rocks, trying to catch their breath. Some of them were crying. Others just stared into the darkness, shock written on their faces. Jiho walked to the edge of the ravine and looked down. It was deep, maybe 100 feet. Sharp rocks jutted up from the bottom. Falling would mean death. The wind shifted and she caught a smell. Something musky and old, like rotting meat mixed with animal musk. The stalker's scent. It's still following us, she said quietly. Of course it is, Dern said. He had pulled out a weapon, a heavy plasma rifle that looked tiny in his massive hands. Question is, when will it attack? As if in answer, they heard movement in the jungle. Not the crashing sounds from before. This was slow, deliberate. The stalker was stalking them now, moving carefully through the trees. Get ready, Kalthos said, raising his own weapon. The rest of the crew did the same, forming a defensive line. The movement stopped. Silence fell over the jungle, thick and heavy. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Then the stalker stepped into view. In the moonlight, it was even more terrifying than before. Its armored hide gleamed like black metal. Scars covered its body, evidence of countless battles. This creature had been the apex predator for a long time. It looked at them with intelligent eyes. Not the eyes of a mindless beast, but something that thought, that planned. It was sizing them up, calculating its approach. Fire! Kalthos screamed. Weapons lit up the night. Plasma bolts and energy beams struck the stalker's hide, making it roar in pain and anger. But the armor held. The weapons barely scratched it. The stalker charged. It moved impossibly fast for something so large. One moment it was at the tree line, the next it was in their midst. Its tail swept around, knocking 3 aliens off their feet. Its claws flashed in the moonlight. Dern stepped forward to meet it, roaring his own challenge. He swung the plasma rifle like a club, connecting with the stalker's leg. The creature barely noticed. It batted him aside with one massive paw, sending him flying into the rocks. Dern didn't get up. Fall back, Kalthos yelled. To the path. The crew scrambled toward the narrow path along the ravine edge. The stalker watched them go, making no move to follow. It just stood there, blocking their escape back to the jungle. That's when Jiho understood. The creature had herded them here deliberately. It had driven them to this ravine, to this killing ground. Now they were trapped between the path and the predator. Kalthos seemed to realize it too. His scales had gone completely white with fear. "We're dead," he whispered. "We're all dead." The stalker took a step forward. Then another. It was in no hurry. It knew they had nowhere to go. Jiho looked at the crew. They were broken, defeated. Some of them had already given up, sitting down with their backs to the rocks, waiting for death. She thought about Korsh, torn apart in the jungle. She thought about Dern lying unconscious against the rocks. She thought about her own home, Earth, so far away. Then she thought about something Minho had said. Trust your instincts. Her instincts were screaming at her now. They were screaming one word over and over. Fight, not with weapons. The weapons were useless. Fight the way her ancestors had fought. The way humans had always fought, long before they had guns and plasma rifles. Fight with what made them human. Jiho dropped her pack and walked forward, past the cowering aliens toward the stalker. "What are you doing?" Kalthos hissed. "Get back here!" She ignored him. She walked until she was standing between the crew and the creature, 10 feet away from those massive jaws, close enough to see herself reflected in those intelligent eyes. The stalker tilted its head, confused. This tiny creature was approaching it, not running away but coming closer. Jiho met its eyes. She stood up as tall as she could. She spread her arms wide, making herself look bigger. And then she did something the aliens would never forget. She roared. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a cry of fear. It was a roar, deep and guttural, coming from her chest. The sound of a predator challenging another predator. The sound of something that refused to die quietly. The stalker stopped. It stared at her, its head tilting further. In all its years as the apex predator, nothing had ever challenged it like this. "Come on," Jiho said, her voice steady. "You want us? You have to go through me first." The creature took a step back, just one step, but the aliens saw it. The stalker, the unstoppable nightmare of Vertus 7, had backed away from the human. "Jiho," Kalthos whispered. "What are you doing?" "Talking to it," she said, not taking her eyes off the stalker. "In the only language it understands." She took a step forward. The stalker held its ground this time, but it didn't attack. It was watching her, studying her, trying to understand what she was. "That's right," Jiho said softly. "I'm not prey. I'm a predator too. My species hunted mammoths to extinction. We walked across continents with nothing but sharp rocks. We're persistence hunters. We don't stop. We never stop." She took another step. Her heart was hammering in her chest, her body screaming at her to run. But she kept moving forward, kept meeting those ancient eyes. The stalker growled, a sound like grinding rocks, but it didn't attack. "We need to move," Jiho said over her shoulder to the crew. "Slowly, don't act like prey. Walk like you own this jungle." "You're insane," Kalthos said. "Maybe," Jiho agreed, "but I'm still alive. Now move." Slowly, carefully, the crew started backing toward the narrow path. Jiho moved with them, always keeping herself between them and the stalker. She never turned her back on the creature, never broke eye contact. The stalker watched them go. It could attack. It could kill them all in seconds. But something held it back. This tiny creature, this human, had done something no other prey had ever done. It had looked death in the face and refused to blink. And the apex predator didn't know what to make of that. They moved along the narrow path in silence, their backs pressed against the rock wall. The ravine yawned beside them, deep and dark. One wrong step would mean falling to their death, but the real danger was behind them. The stalker followed at a distance, moving parallel to their path through the jungle. Jiho could see its eyes in the darkness, always watching, always tracking. It hadn't attacked again, but it hadn't left either. "Why isn't it killing us?" one of the aliens whispered. "Because she confused it," Kalthos said, looking at Jiho with something like awe. "It doesn't know what we are anymore." "We're prey that acts like predators," Jiho said quietly. "It's trying to figure us out. What do? We keep moving slowly, no sudden movements. And nobody runs. Running triggers the hunt response." They continued along the path, step by careful step. Jiho led the way now, no longer following but leading. The aliens led her, their earlier mockery completely forgotten. Behind them, they heard Dern groan. Two of the crew had carried him, his massive weight nearly breaking their backs. Blood ran down his face from where the stalker had struck him. "How much further to the outpost?" Dern mumbled. 5, maybe 6 hours, Kalthos said. "If we maintain this pace." "We won't make it," another alien said. "Look at us. We're exhausted. Half of us can barely walk." "Then we die walking," Jiho said. "Because stopping means dying for sure." A sound crackled in her ear. her communicator, which she had forgotten she was wearing. Jiho? Can you hear me? It was Minho's voice, tense and worried. She pressed the device. I hear you. Thank God. Your emergency beacon activated hours ago. What's happening out there? The stalker found us, she said simply, a pause. Then another voice came on, female, speaking quickly. This is Hierin, Minho's sister. I'm a xenobiologist. I've been tracking your vitals. Jiho, your heart rate is elevated but steady. The aliens with you are in full panic mode. What are you doing differently? I'm not running, Jiho said. I stood my ground. It backed down. Impossible, Hierin said. The stalker is the apex predator. It doesn't back down from anything. It backed down from me. Another pause. Jiho could hear Hierin talking to someone in the background, her voice excited. Of course, Hierin said finally. You're a persistence predator. The stalker recognized something in you. Something familiar. What do you mean? Humans evolved as persistence hunters, Jiho. You hunted prey by following it for days until it collapsed from exhaustion. No other predator on Earth did that. No other predator in the galaxy does that. The stalker has never encountered anything like you. Behind her, the crew was listening to every word. So what do I do? Jiho asked. What you're already doing. Don't act like prey. Maintain eye contact when it approaches. Show no fear. The stalker is testing you, trying to figure out where you fit in its worldview. If you keep acting like a predator, it might decide you're not worth the fight. Might? Xenobiology isn't an exact science. But Jiho, you need to understand something. Humans are persistence predators who evolved intelligence. You're the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and you don't even realize it. Show the stalker what that means. The communication cut out. Jiho looked back at the crew. They were all staring at her, is that true? Kalthos asked. Are humans really that dangerous? I don't know, Jiho said honestly. But I'm about to find out. The stalker chose that moment to make its move. It burst from the jungle, running straight at them. The crew screamed, pressing back against the rocks, but Jiho stepped forward. She planted her feet and raised her arms again, making herself as big as possible. No, she shouted at the creature. Not prey. Not prey. The stalker stopped 10 feet away, its claws digging trenches in the dirt. It roared, showing all its teeth, a sound that made Jiho's bones vibrate. She roared back. Every bit of fear, every bit of anger, every bit of determination she had went into that sound. It wasn't as loud as the stalker's roar. It wasn't as deep. But it was just as fierce. The stalker's eyes widened. Just a little, but Jiho saw it. The creature was surprised. That's right, she said, her voice shaking but steady. I don't care how big you are. I don't care that you're the apex predator. I'm a human, and humans don't quit. Ever. They stared at each other for a long moment. Predator and predator locked in a battle of wills. Then the stalker did something incredible. It lowered its head. Just slightly, just for a moment. But it was a gesture of acknowledgement. Not submission, but recognition. It turned and vanished back into the jungle. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They couldn't believe what they had just seen. It's playing with us, one of the aliens said finally. It'll come back. No, Jiho said, watching where the stalker had disappeared. It's testing us. It wants to see what we can do. What do you mean? Before she could answer, the stalker appeared again. But this time it was ahead of them, blocking the path. It stood there for a moment, making sure they saw it, then ran away into the trees. It's hurting us, Kalthos said. No, Jiho said slowly. It's leading us, watch. They followed the path, and each time they reached a fork or obstacle, the stalker appeared briefly to show them the way. It was guiding them toward something. This doesn't make sense, Dern said. He was more alert now, his thick skull having protected him from serious damage. Predators don't help their prey. They do if they're teaching them. Hierin's voice came back on the communicator. I'm analyzing the stalker's behavior. Jiho, I think it's testing your endurance. Persistence predators on Earth would chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the prey collapsed from exhaustion. The stalker might be doing the same to you. So it wants to see if we can keep up? Exactly. And if you can, if you prove you're strong enough to survive in its territory, it might leave you alone. You'll have earned its respect. And if we can't keep up? Hierin didn't answer. She didn't need to. Then we don't stop, Jiho said to the crew. No matter how tired we are. No matter how much it hurts. We keep moving. Easy for you to say, one of the aliens gasped. Your species evolved for this. We didn't. Then adapt, Jiho said, her voice hard. Or die, your choice. They walked through the night. Hours passed, bleeding into each other. The aliens stumbled and fell, picked themselves up and kept going. Some of them cried, others cursed, but they all kept moving. And through it all, the stalker watched. Sometimes close, sometimes far away, always present, always testing. Jiho's legs burned. Her shoulders ached from the packs she had carried. Her feet were blistered and bleeding inside her boots. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. This was what her ancestors had done. Chased prey across the African savanna, following it for days until it collapsed. Outlasted everything, survived everything, conquered a world through pure stubborn determination. She was human, and humans didn't quit. Dawn broke over the jungle, painting the sky in shades of gold and red. Through the trees ahead, Jiho could see the outpost walls. They had made it. The crew saw it too. Some of them laughed, others cried with relief. They had survived the impossible, but the stalker wasn't done yet. It appeared one last time, directly in front of them. The crew froze, weapons coming up in shaking hands. The creature walked toward them slowly. Jiho stepped forward to meet it, too tired to be afraid anymore. They stood facing each other in the morning light. Human and stalker, persistence predator and apex predator. The stalker lowered its massive head until its eyes were level with Jiho's. She could feel its breath, hot and heavy, washing over her face. Could smell the scent of old blood on its teeth. She didn't blink. Didn't look away. After a moment that felt like forever, the stalker made a sound. Not a roar, but something softer, almost like a purr, deep and rumbling. Then it bowed its head lower, a clear gesture of respect. Jiho, acting on instinct, reached out and touched its armored snout. The creature allowed it, standing perfectly still. "We understand each other now," she whispered. Predator to predator. The stalker pulled back, turned, and walked into the jungle. This time Jiho knew it wouldn't return. The test was over. They had passed. Jiho's legs finally gave out. She collapsed to her knees, everything catching up to her at once. The fear, the exhaustion, the weight of what had just happened. Kalthos caught her before she fell completely. "I've got you," he said quietly. The outpost gates opened and Minho came running out with a medical team. "Get them inside." Quickly. As they carried her through the gates, Jiho looked back one last time at the jungle. She could have sworn she saw two yellow eyes watching from the shadows, but when she blinked, they were gone. The test was over. But everything had changed. Jiho woke up in the medical bay 3 days later. Her body ached everywhere, but she was alive. That was more than she had expected when she walked into that jungle. Minho was sitting beside her bed, reading from a datapad. When he saw her eyes open, he smiled with relief. "Welcome back," he said. "You had us worried there." "The crew?" Jiho asked, her voice rough. "All alive. Dern has a concussion and some broken ribs, but he'll survive. The others are exhausted and traumatized, but they'll recover." Minho paused. "You saved them, Jiho, all of them. They know it. Where's Kalthos?" "Outside. He's been waiting for you to wake up. So have about 50 other people." Jiho tried to sit up, but her body protested. Minho helped her, propping pillows behind her back. "What happened while I was asleep?" she asked. "Everything changed," Minho said. "Word spread about what you did out there. How you faced down the stalker and lived. How you led the crew through the jungle while they were ready to give up. Every alien in this outpost is talking about it." "Talking about what?" "About humans. About what we really are." Before Jiho could respond, the door opened. Kalthos walked in, looking different somehow. It took her a moment to realize what had changed. He wasn't walking with arrogance anymore. His posture was different, more respectful. "You're awake," he said. Behind him, other crew members filed in, including Dern with his head wrapped in bandages. "I wanted to speak with you," Kalthos continued. "To apologize. And to thank you." Jiho blinked. "Apologize? For how I treated you? For thinking humans were weak? For putting you in danger because I was too arrogant to listen?" He looked down at his hands. "You saved us all out there. I would have gotten everyone killed if you hadn't taken charge." "We survived together," Jiho said. "No." Dern spoke up, his voice rumbling. "We survived because of you. You stood between us and death. You challenged the stalker when we had given up. You led us home when we couldn't take another step." He took a breath. "I want to learn from you. I want to understand how humans think, how they survive. Will you teach me?" Jiho looked at the massive alien, surprised. You want me to teach you? All of us do, Kalthos said. The whole crew. We thought we understood predators because we carry weapons and fight, but you showed us something different. You showed us what real predators are like. The door opened again and Hyerin walked in. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and quick movements. She smiled when she saw Jiho awake. Perfect timing, she said. I was hoping to talk to you. And since everyone's here, I might as well explain to everyone what happened in that jungle. She pulled up a holographic display, showing images of Earth and various predators. I've spent the last 3 days researching human evolution, and I need to share what I found. Because everyone in this outpost needs to understand what they're working with. The crew gathered around as Hyerin began her presentation. Humans evolved as persistence hunters, she explained. On Earth, most predators rely on speed or strength to catch prey. But humans developed something else, endurance. They could chase prey for hours, sometimes days, until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Images showed ancient humans running across plains, following herds. No other predator on Earth could do this. Lions can sprint but tire quickly. Wolves can run for miles but need rest. Humans can run forever if they pace themselves. They have efficient cooling systems, strong legs, and most importantly, unbreakable determination. But they're so small, one of the aliens said. So weak compared to us. That's what the mammoths thought too, Hyerin said. Mammoths were massive creatures, 10 feet tall, weighing several tons. They had thick skin and huge tusks. They were perfect for surviving in the Ice Age. She paused. Humans hunted them to extinction with nothing but sharp rocks and patience. Silence fell over the room. Humans, Hyerin continued, are the only species that ever evolved this kind of hunting. They're also the only species that developed advanced intelligence while maintaining their predator instincts. Think about that. They built cities, created technology, developed space travel, and underneath all of it, they're still the same hunters who walked out of Africa and conquered an entire planet. She turned to Jiho. The stalker recognized something in you. It saw another apex predator, something it had never encountered before. A predator that doesn't give up, doesn't back down, and doesn't accept defeat. That's why it showed you respect. So we've been working alongside apex predators this whole time? Kalthos asked quietly. And we treated them like they were weak? You treated them how they wanted to be treated, Hyerin said. Humans are social creatures. They work in groups, they follow rules, they try to fit in. But in that jungle, when survival was on the line, Jiho reverted to her instincts. She became what her ancestors were, a hunter that nothing can stop. The crew looked at Jiho with new eyes, not with fear but with respect and maybe a little awe. I have a question, Dern said. Why didn't you use a weapon against the stalker? You could have fired at it like we did. Jiho thought about it. Because weapons wouldn't have worked. It had armor. But more than that, using a weapon would have made me look like prey trying to defend itself. I needed to show it that I was a predator too. Predators don't shoot at each other from a distance. They face each other. They test each other. And the stalker understood that, Hyerin said. It recognized the language of predators. That's why it tested your endurance. It wanted to see if you were really what you claimed to be. Over the next few weeks, things changed at the outpost. Jiho recovered her strength, and when she was ready, Kalthos made an announcement to the syndicate leadership. I want Jiho as a permanent member of my crew, he said, not as equipment carrier, as our survival specialist and second in command. The leadership agreed immediately. Word of what happened in the jungle had spread beyond the outpost. Other crews were asking for human members. The species that had been seen as weak was now in high demand. But Jiho didn't let it go to her head. She spent her time training the crew, teaching them about wilderness survival, predator behavior, and endurance tactics. She trained them to think like hunters instead of fighters. Dern became her best student. Despite his size and strength, he was willing to learn. My species evolved on a peaceful world, he admitted during one training session. We got big because we ate plants and had no predators. We're not really fighters. We just look scary. That's okay, Jiho said. You don't need to be a predator. You just need to understand them. And you need to know when to stand your ground and when to walk away. 2 months after the jungle incident, Kalthos announced a new mission. Another crew had gotten into trouble deep in Vertus 7 and they needed extraction. It's dangerous, he told Jiho. The stalker's territory again. Are you willing to go? Jiho looked out at the jungle thinking. Then she nodded. Let's go get them. The crew prepared carefully this time. They brought proper equipment, planned their route, and moved with confidence instead of arrogance. Jiho led them through the jungle, reading the signs, watching for danger. On the second day, they found the other crew trapped in a ravine, surrounded by smaller predators. They extracted them successfully and started the journey back. That night, as they made camp, the crew heard familiar breathing in the darkness. Everyone froze. The stalker had found them again. It stepped into the firelight, massive and terrifying. The rescued crew panicked, reaching for weapons. "Don't," Jiho said calmly. She stood up and walked toward the creature, her movements slow and confident. The stalker watched her approach. When she was close enough, it lowered its head in that gesture of recognition. Jiho reached out and touched its snout again, just like she had before. "Hello, old friend," she said softly. "We're just passing through. No trouble today." The stalker made that purring sound, deep and rumbling. Then it looked past her at the rest of the crew. Its eyes lingered on Dern, who was standing tall instead of cowering. After a moment, the stalker turned and walked away, disappearing into the jungle. The rescued crew stared in shock. "What just happened?" one of them asked. "Respect," Dern said simply. "We earned it." They made it back to the outpost without further incident. As they walked through the gates, Jiho looked back at the jungle one last time. She could see eyes watching from the shadows, but they didn't frighten her anymore. She had learned something important in that jungle. Humans had spent thousands of years trying to be civilized, trying to be peaceful, trying to hide their predator nature. They had built cities and laws and cultures all designed to control the hunters they used to be. But that instinct was still there, in every human, waiting. And sometimes when survival demanded it, that instinct woke up. The hunter remembered what it was. The predator stopped pretending. That's what made humans dangerous. Not that they were predators, but that they could choose when to be predators and when to be civilized. The aliens understood that now. They had seen Jiho switch from friendly recruit to apex hunter and back again. They had watched her face down the stalker with nothing but courage and will, and they would never mock a human again. Minho met her at the gate with a smile. "Heard it went well." "It did," Jiho said. "The stalker and I have an understanding now." "And what's that?" "We stay out of each other's way. But if we meet again, we'll show each other respect." She smiled. Predator to predator,